Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Over the next half an hour, we'll be looking beyond the business headlines by giving you in-depth perspective on the stories that are affecting all of us. Coming up on today's show, at a cost of £500,000 to taxpayers, on top of an upfront payment of £120 million paid to the government in Kigali, Britain's first chartered flight to Rwanda failed to take off on Tuesday night after a last-minute intervention by the European Court of Human Rights. The Rwanda government spokesperson Yolande Makolo will join me from Kigali to tell me what next for this highly controversial scheme. And the Bank of England has raised interest rates for the fifth time in a row to 1.25% to try and rein in soaring inflation that is leaving millions of households on the brink. Ruth London, the founder of the campaign group Fuel Poverty Action, will be speaking with me from the capital about what more can be done to support those who are vulnerable. Then later, I'll be looking back at some of the biggest business news stories of the week. But first, let's start the show with a topic that is back on the agenda for the British government: Brexit. Downing Street has defended plans to override parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol after the EU confirmed that it has taken legal action over the UK's proposed changes to the post-Brexit trading arrangements. The Brexit bill, which has been accused of undermining the Good Friday Agreement, is at the centre of the dispute.
What is vitally important is that we do resolve this situation in Northern Ireland that is causing real problems. We haven't seen the executive operating since February. We need to get power sharing re-established. We know how hard won the Belfast Good Friday Agreement was, and that is why the government has to act. That is why we are introducing this legislation. Now, of course, we remain open to negotiations with the EU, and I would rather achieve this through a negotiated settlement. But the fact is, the EU have refused to change the protocol, which is causing these problems on trade, on tax, and more broadly in Northern Ireland.
After countless hours of intensive, line-by-line negotiations, it was the one and only solution we could jointly find to protect hard-earned gains of the peace process in Northern Ireland while addressing the challenges created by Brexit and the type of Brexit chosen by the UK government. Renegotiating of the protocol is unrealistic. No workable alternative solution has been found to this delicate, long-negotiated balance. Any renegotiations would simply bring further legal uncertainty for the people and businesses in Northern Ireland. For these reasons, the European Union will not renegotiate the protocol.
Well, earlier I spoke with our business correspondent Simon Pusey for some analysis. Simon, so on Monday, Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, set out new legislation which will seek to override the Northern Ireland Protocol. How have we got here?
Yeah, well, when she did that, she said, and the whole government made very clear, that this was not going to break international law, but the EU see differently. And so since Liz Truss came out and said that, they've said that they've got a two-month period now to respond to their concerns. Otherwise, they're going to take them to court because they say this is illegal. It's very damaging for relations between the EU and the UK. And they're reopening a case that they initially had taken against the UK when they first accused them of breaking international law. So this isn't a great look for the government. And obviously there's a lot of scandals going on at the moment with cases like the Rwanda immigration mess. And so this is, the last thing that they need. And I guess what they're doing is they're trying to go back on the deal that was initially signed. And a lot of people will be rolling their eyes thinking everyone was talking about, especially Boris Johnson was talking about how good this Brexit deal was. It was oven ready. It was ready to go. There were no problems with it. A lot of people were pointing to Northern Ireland and how this may affect the Northern Ireland Agreement. A lot of worry over the Atlantic with President Joe Biden taking quite an interest in Ireland and the situation there, and the peace deal that was signed by Tony Blair all those years ago. So they're saying that this needs to change for that reason. There's quite a few trade frictions and a lot of sort of red tape that a lot of businesses are struggling with in terms of getting food to supermarkets in Northern Ireland. But a lot of people saying this isn't the way to do it, just to sort of try and circumvent something that you've signed already. And the opposition party, Labour Party, obviously jumping all over this, saying that this is a mess created by the Conservatives when they signed this deal. So it is quite embarrassing for the government, and it's quite hard to see how this is going to end other than in the courts. because both sides seem to be coming from completely different positions. The UK saying, well, this is just necessary and we have to do this, I'm afraid. But they're not really consulting the EU on this. And the EU coming back and saying, well, you've got 2 months to change this because otherwise we're going to take you to court. So it's hard to see how this can end in anything other than acrimony.
Is it fair to say, Simon, that Brexit's not working?
It's probably unfair to say that, but it's fair to say there are a lot of challenges and difficulties and problems. And there's a lot of people that are very unhappy with it. You know, this was supposed to be for fishermen. Well, a lot of fishermen we've seen with, disputes with French fishermen have not got better off as a result of Brexit. It was supposed to be for farmers. A lot of farmers are really struggling. And obviously we've got a number of things at the moment going on in terms of inflation, wages stagnant, the war in Ukraine driving up prices.
Cancelled flights.
It's hard to know exactly which, but it seems to be a perfect storm. But I don't think Brexit's helping. And the fact that, the economy is not doing great at the moment. You've got interest rates rising, but the pound isn't great. So it's really hard to say, but things like this do not help the Brexiteers' cause, or there just seem to be so many different things going on at the moment as a result of Brexit that it's hard to say that it's been a massive success. But I don't think anyone was expecting it to be a short-term success. Everyone was pointing for 10, 20 years in the future. Brexiteers would say, well, there are always going to be bumps in the road. But for people that this actually affects, a lot of people in Northern Ireland really struggling with trade, the businesses that used to trade freely with Europe there are really struggling. And for them, Brexit certainly isn't working. For the casual person who wants to have a blue passport and wants to be able to have, go back to metric units, etc., maybe that's working for them. But I think for a lot of people, yeah, they are really struggling.
Yeah, it's pretty tough, isn't it? We'll talk about this same time next week, I presume. Thank you, Simon. Now to our next story. The British Deputy Prime Minister has said it was wrong for the European Court of Human Rights to intervene with the plan to take asylum seekers from the UK to Rwanda. Tory ministers have been forced into a humiliating defeat after the Strasbourg-based court thwarted Tuesday evening's departure. The aborted flight is believed to have cost up to £500,000, on top of an upfront payment of £120 million paid to the government in Kigali. The Home Secretary insists that planning is already underway for another evacuation.
While this decision by the Strasbourg court to intervene was disappointing and surprising given the repeated and considered judgments to the contrary in our domestic courts, we remain committed to this policy. This government will not be deterred from doing the right thing. We will not be put off by the inevitable legal last-minute challenges, nor we will allow mobs, Madam Deputy Speaker, to block removals.
We believe that this is all wrong. This is all wrong, this deal, for so many different reasons. And I can enumerate a few. First of all, it is the foundation of the right to asylum that people that are on a country's territory, especially a country that is a signatory to the convention and has the institutions to deal with that, to export that responsibility to another country runs contrary to any notion of responsibility sharing, of international responsibility, and so forth.
Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by the Rwandan government spokesperson, Yolande Mukolo, in Kigali. Yolande Mukolo, thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global today. I was just saying to you off air that you have been one busy lady. You've not been off screens in Britain this week, as to be expected, because it's a pretty contentious topic. Are you surprised that at, I would say, past the 11th hour, the flight was grounded on Tuesday?
We knew that there would be legal challenges to this. On our side, we've always been ready to start, and we remain ready to begin to welcome migrants whenever they do come. We're undeterred, and we're committed to this partnership.
Absolutely. I know it might be uncomfortable listening, but you have been listening to some of these statements. One Tory MP, a backbencher, described the scheme as ugly. Prince Charles weighed in apparently and said it was appalling. And of course, you know that the Church of England has said that the immoral policy shames Britain. How have you been able to justify it?
I don't think we need to justify it because we're in this for the right reasons. We're very happy to explain because I think a lot of the the criticism and the negativity around this is coming from the wrong place, from ignorance or from maybe racism as well, and negative perceptions of Africa that's pervasive in media. So we were very happy to explain why we're doing this and how we are going to do it, because we're basically offering a home to migrants and to people who need a safe place to be, to live, and to be productive, and to get opportunities that they might not be able to get in their own countries or in their own regions. We think that Africa is a land of opportunity. It's a good place to be. It's a good place to live. Rwanda certainly is working hard to make this a good place for our citizens and anyone else who wants to live here with us and thrive with us. So we're working very hard on that. So we do not understand when people perceive coming to Rwanda or living in Rwanda as a punishment, because we do not see it that way at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can say, as a British journalist of Nigerian heritage living here, I think, some of the media reports have been, quite tense. And, I've got to agree, at least on one point with the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, that there has been some xenophobic remarks. But quite frankly, Yolanda, unfortunately, these migrants are saying they'd rather kill themselves than go to Rwanda. We're not really seeing much defence of this policy by fellow members of the African Union, and there have been reporters on the ground in Rwanda, in Kigali, speaking to some migrants who are currently in your country, and they say, don't come here.
But the journalists who are here have also visited with migrants at, for instance, at the Gashora Emergency Transit Mechanism. This is a program that we put in place together with the UNHCR and the African Union to rescue mostly African migrants who are stuck in Libya when the war started. We've evacuated more than 1,000 of them. They live here at the center that a lot of journalists have visited. They have compared being here as being in heaven in comparison to what the situation they were in before, in a situation of war and of danger. So Rwanda is a safe, secure place to be. We've given a home to these migrants. Many of them have moved on to other countries that have that are resettling them, but they have had an opportunity to see what this country is like. And what we're doing now with the UK is based on this model of let people come here for safety. The people who are fleeing conflict, who are fleeing persecution, they will find safety and security here. There's also a very big group, maybe the vast majority of migrants who are just seeking economic opportunity. They deserve to, because everyone deserves a dignified life. And this is what we're offering in Rwanda as well. Come live here with us. This program is well resourced. The UK is making an investment so that migrants who come here are able to get packages that will allow them to integrate into our community and develop themselves. And funds are also being invested into our general development program, so we can do more of what we're doing to improve the living conditions here.
Yolanda Makolo, Rwandan government spokesperson, thank you so much for speaking to me on Channel's Business Global, and well done for staying strong in the face of pretty harsh criticism, I must say, from British media. Thank you so much, Yolanda.
Thanks for having me. It's my duty to explain. Happy to.
Before we speak with Ruth London, the founder of the campaign group Fuel Poverty Action, let me remind you of this week's biggest business news stories. 15 vacant McDonald's restaurants reopened in Russia over the last week under a new name that translates to tasty and that's it. The Moscow unveiling attracted large crowds, and for eager diners, the menu did not disappoint. Chicken nuggets, fries and double cheeseburgers are all available to purchase, and the wider menu is not too far removed from its famous predecessor. Last month, after more than 30 years in the country, McDonald's announced the closure of all 850 restaurants, citing the humanitarian crisis and unpredictable operating environment caused by the invasion of Ukraine. British Airways is facing a summer of strikes after ground and cabin staff backed industrial action in a long-running dispute over pay. The announcement comes after the airline was forced to cancel over 100 flights operating to and from Heathrow. The Unite Union, which represents 16,000 BA workers, won a 97% majority in a ballot for potential industrial action. A BA spokesman described the result as disappointing, adding that the group remains committed to open and honest talks with trade unions about their concerns. Microsoft shut down Internet Explorer after 27 years on Wednesday, marking an end of an era and what was many people's first introduction to the internet. The move has sparked a small panic among businesses and government agencies that built internal systems around the browser. Internet Explorer was first released in 1995 as part of an add-on package for Windows, and for the next 18 years, the multi-billion-dollar firm released 11 versions of the web browsing software. In nearly every country around the world, Google Chrome is the most widely used browser, followed by Apple Safari. The desktop app is now disabled, and users will be redirected to Microsoft's Edge browser instead. Now to our final topic. On Thursday, the Bank of England raised its interest rates for the fifth time in a row to 1.25%. The move is an attempt to combat soaring inflation, which is currently at a 40-year high. The ongoing cost of living crisis has intensified as energy, food and fuel bills are rising sharply. The UK economy is showing signs of a slowdown, and campaign groups are calling for more government intervention. Ruth London is the founder of Fuel Poverty Action, and she joins me now from the capital for more on this. Ruth London, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Fuel poverty is pretty much a new term for some people. For some of our viewers who may not be familiar with it, can you describe exactly what it is and how we got into this crisis in the UK in the first place?
It means that people don't have enough money to be able to heat our homes, keep the fridge and freezer on, keep the lights on, charge phones, all the things that you need to do with energy. And since the cost of energy is going up so much, there's an awful lot more people in fuel poverty now. Of course, it can't be separated from other poverty. You know, once you're that low on income, very likely it's a problem buying enough food as well.
Yes.
And how did we get into this? Well, you know, people's incomes are too low. The prices are too high. Our homes are not well insulated. You know, in the UK, that's a really big problem. Not only not well insulated, but often not well repaired, so that, you know, you're losing, you have gales, cold air coming in through ill-fitting windows, doors, floorboards, and so on. And also, of course, the choice of fuel, the fact that, you know, the UK government is still absolutely wedded to gas and oil, whereas in fact renewable energy is very much cheaper now. And that's, you know, that's one of the reasons why we're paying so much for what ought to be a common good, you know, a right that everybody has access to.
Well, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, it's set to get worse, isn't it? When the energy regulator Ofgem increase the cap later this year. So earlier this week, Ruth, the announcement of the first instalment of that £650 payment was announced. It is going to be going to millions of the most vulnerable households in the UK. £326 in July, then a further £324 sometime in the autumn. Extra money for those who are elderly and those who are disabled. What more do you want the government to do?
You know, they're just giving back a little bit of what they've already taken away. You know, that $650 is for people who are on means-tested benefits like universal credit. And in the autumn, they took away the £20 uplift that was helping people on universal credit survive through the pandemic. Pandemic is not over, by the way. And people's cost of living has risen tremendously since that time. And yet they're not even giving back as much as they took. You know, there's £400 towards the bills. But what is happening, you know, is that the prices are going up by about £1,500 this year. And they say, OK, we're giving you £1,000. Isn't that wonderful? But it doesn't, when you start already at a point where people are not able to eat or not able to heat their homes, where 10,000 people a year every winter die in this country because they're cold in their own homes. You know, that from that starting point, you can't find that extra £500. And we have to remember also that this price rise, you know, this is not inevitable. This is completely going towards the profits of the energy corporations, because they're not having to pay more for the energy that they sell us. It doesn't cost any more to get out of the ground or under the sea or wherever they're getting it from. It's just that they can get away because of so-called supply and demand. They can get away with putting the prices up. And what that means is that while people are, you know, putting aside food money to pay their bill or to top up their prepayment meter, while people are doing that, that money is going into private pockets, you know, investors' pockets of people who have money they don't even know what to do. So much they don't know what to do with it to begin with.
Yeah, well, there was some extraordinary... Sorry to interject, Ruth, but there was some extraordinary trading updates from BP and Shell earlier this year. However, there has been that windfall tax, or so-called windfall tax, and we are expecting them to have to dig deeper to try and get Britain out of this crisis. I want to kind of broaden the discussion before I let you go, Ruth, and talk about ordinary people, you know, because, of course, earlier this week we had some data from the Office for National Statistics on the labour market, and we're seeing that, you know, the 40-year high inflation at 9% is really eating into the disposable incomes of workers. Are you afraid that, you know, this isn't just about the poorest in the UK, that this is affecting people who are working too, that they are having to, you know, not have a coffee or a tea at lunch, and they're bringing food in from home because they simply cannot afford to cope with the crisis?
Absolutely. You know, poverty in this country is not only for people who are, quote, not working. First of all, a lot of people who are supposedly not working are actually mums looking after children at home. And I don't know who they expect to look after the children if the mums go out to a job. But secondly, a lot of people are actually employed, some of them in 2 or 3 jobs, and they're still going to food banks to try to feed their families and still getting means-tested benefits. So there's a lot of poverty among people who are, you know, working in paid jobs, but they're just underpaid. And we're putting forward a different pricing system. We're saying that everybody should get a flat, enough energy free to cover the basics, you know, to keep their lights on, heat their homes to an acceptable level and so on, that should go to everybody and should be paid for by higher prices for the people that are spending, you know, feeling very, very free with their money because they've got plenty of it. And also that it should come from an end to the huge fossil fuel subsidies that this government's giving out. And a windfall tax, the windfall tax they've got now, they're giving it back with the other hand because they're saying that for every pound that's invested in gas and oil, they're going to pay 91 pence to the companies for investing in their own business. That's not the sort of windfall tax we're talking about. We want a real redistribution from those profits to the people who are making those profits. And we think that this winter, you know, or this autumn, people in the UK will finally have had enough and will stand up. You know, they're welcome to get in touch with us at Fuel Poverty Action. Sign our petition for the Energy for All, that free band of energy. That's on change.org. And, you know, join the campaign for that, because it really isn't on that people are going cold and hungry and even dying of it.
Goodness, a stark call to action there. Hopefully, the Chancellor Rishi Sunak is watching our programme today, although I know he'll definitely be familiar with the work that you and all of your colleagues are doing at Fuel Poverty Action. Ruth London, thank you so much for taking your time to join us today. Thank you, Ruth.
Can I add one word? If it's a pre-record, isn't it? And
yes.
You can. We know that people in Nigeria have fought very hard against Shell. You know, we know that there have been battles and people have lost their lives. And we have a huge amount of respect for the fight that people have made against these same companies that now are holding the whole world in a stranglehold, really. You know, hats off to what you've done, and we wish you every success.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I know our viewers in Nigeria will appreciate that, and quite rightly, they have had an ongoing legal dispute with some of these big oil tycoons for some time now. So I really appreciate that important addition. Thank you, Ruth. Sadly, that's all we have time for today. But as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global. Goodbye.